the Vols suddenly on a run. That's one of the things I always enjoyed about recruiting. You can be dead in the water, and then bingo, bango, a big weekend happens, and you're picking up cats. So we know about Boo Carter on Saturday. I was out of town, so great job, Caleb Giroux and Caleb Calhoun and all the guys staying on top of that. And you now have Jordan Burns. So let's talk some Cruton, not only what Tennessee has now, but what they need as well. So what did you make, before I give you a breakdown of Jordan Burns and tell you what I have heard about Jordan Burns, but what did you make of Jordan Burns and the commitment as he chooses the University of Tennessee yesterday publicly?
I got two thoughts in my head. The first is it's great news for Tennessee. They need help at linebacker. They got a linebacker. They need to, as you've talked about, win some of those recruiting battles in Georgia. They won one in Georgia for an Atlanta area kid. And then also coming on the heels of Boo Carter, momentum starting to pick up in June. Those are all good signs. Tennessee's back to number 11, I think, in the 247 Sports Composite. Fourth in the SEC. By the way, SEC is kind of getting like, there's actually competition from other conferences this year in the SEC in recruiting so far. But the drawback to me is that I do take into account who his top schools were. And it seems like he was down to Tennessee, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt. And my thing is...
So our rankings on Off the Hook Sports are anywhere, somewhere, nowhere. So he's a somewhere kid, right?
I think he's a somewhere kid. Now, he's listed as a 4-star on 247 Composite. I think he's closer to a 3-star. Because if he were truly a 4-star, I think Georgia would want him enough where he would be considering Georgia and not Arkansas and Vanderbilt.
That's fair. The Composite, he's a 4-star. 247 Sports has him as a 3-star. I think it's more significant than that for a couple of different reasons. I can't hammer this home enough. The fact that you're in Atlanta, is this a guy that Tennessee's ahead of the curve on with Georgia? Could Georgia come calling later? Certainly. But I do like the fact, too, that Tennessee is getting a guy who's probably the best athlete on his team, which is what I was told. And they were 8-3 in 4A, and he played linebacker and running back. Who does that remind you of? Guys that played defense as well. We just talked about the Celebrate 98 series. Basically, every linebacker they had played running back primarily, but also played defense. So I really like the Jordan Burns pickup. I think it's significant being in the Atlanta area, and that leads us to 4 Downs. 4 Downs is right now, and it's brought to you by Andy Mason, realestate.com, as we talk some Cruton.
4 Downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
I really think that I'm going to surprise Caleb with some of my answers here. So I'm looking forward to this. So let's go ahead and get it started. 4 Downs brought to you by Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Best prices and service in the biz, and it ain't even close. So Cooper Mays is going to take us to which down, Coop?
Coop here. First down.
Thanks, Coop. Bigger deal, Burns or Boo? Boo Carter over the weekend, Jordan Burns. Which is the bigger deal?
I'm about to violate every principle I've ever said because you know what I say about in-state recruits from Tennessee. But Boo Carter is a bigger deal because I think Boo Carter is the better player. And I'm basing that off of who was targeting Boo Carter more heavily. And Boo Carter had interest from more high-profile schools than Jordan Burns did.
Boo Carter you have to get because he's an in-state guy that you've made a target. Just in terms of had he not been a major target for Tennessee, and it was so obvious that he was, I would have gone Burns. But I'm gonna roll with you on Boo. But you can make a strong argument that Jordan Burns at Pace Academy is a bigger pickup because it starts to get you into the Atlanta area. Let's not forget that before Tennessee got the number one class in 95, I believe it was, largely because of in-state guys, and then got a highly rated class in 96. I mean, they picked up stragglers along the way, like a Jordan Burns, a guy that perhaps wasn't Georgia's cup of tea, but they had Drunken Ray Golf. You have to watch the Celebrate 98 series to see what player he showed up at to recruit with a couple of pops in him. So, but they had Drunken Ray Golf, but still, I'm going to go with Boo Carter. So I'm going to agree with you on that. What down is what down is it now, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Most important commit overall so far is, just to give you a quick rundown, Jake Merklinger would be the highest rated prospect at this point, followed by Jonathan Eccles of IMG Academy, Caleb Beasley, followed by Peyton Lewis, and then you get to Boo Carter. So that would be your top five. So I would think you would pick somewhere in there. But you can go anywhere you want to. What's the top commitment for Tennessee so far in terms of both a player who can play and long-term success?
Easily Jonathan Eccles to me. I would say Merklinger, but I don't think he's going to stay at Tennessee because I don't see him ever beating out Nico. So it's Jonathan Eccles so far. I mean, the guy was a borderline 5-star edge rusher. I mean, we're talking maybe some Derek Barnett potential, that type of edge rusher at Tennessee when he comes.
Yeah, and man, I hate to agree with you on every single one, but I think that Eccles, for a number of different reasons, is the biggest one. Where things could go south with Eccles is he's made it very clear he wants to play tight end and doesn't want to be an edge rusher. Dude, get over it. Do a Google search on Leonard Little playing linebacker instead of defensive end. Okay. Do a search on flip side, actually, Jason Witten playing tight end instead of defensive end. You got to trust your coaches. It's kind of like when you go into grad school, you don't tell the guy, no, I'm going to do this, that, and you're wrong. And that Pythagorean theorem is exactly wrong. I'm going to go in a different direction. You're an edge rusher. You need to be an edge rusher. So that's the only reason that I might go back and forth on that. By the way, AndyMasonRealEstate.com, AndyMasonRealEstate.com, best service, best prices in the biz. He's who I'm about to call for my next real estate transaction. You will love Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com, best service prices in the biz, over 40 years of experience in the East Tennessee market. He brings you 4 downs. Third down.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Oh, that's second down.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Thank you, man. Don't make that mistake again, Coop. I'm not tolerating stuff like that. All right, so third down, most likely to play early among all of these players and I mentioned the top 5 or so, but you can pick from any list that you would like to, or you can go anywhere on the list. Most likely to play early. What are your thoughts? By the way, Tennessee now has 11. Tennessee has 13 commitments, and they're 11th in the nation. So most likely to play early is.
Can't believe I'm saying this, but it's actually Boo Carter, funny enough. And the reason I say Boo Carter is Tennessee's going to have more immediate needs in the secondary next year, and that's where they're probably going to put Boo Carter. And Eccles, there's still some depth at edge rusher, and based on what you're saying, he's going to fight playing it. So they might Jason Witten him, where they put him at tight end for like a few months and then move him over to edge rusher because they need to. Merklinger is obviously not playing. Caleb Beasley's overrated to me. And Peyton Lewis as a running back is going to be a little bit buried in the depth chart. So it's Boo Carter.
I think Peyton Lewis will be a little bit buried on the depth chart, but they'll find ways to use him. So, but I will actually take Caleb Beasley. I don't think he's as overrated. He's going to step in and play cornerback, which is debatable over whether or not that's one of the easiest positions to learn, but he'll have some insight from Jacob Beasley, who's currently with the program. And I think that he'll be really close being in Nashville to Tennessee's football program, so he'll know more coming in than the average freshman. What down is it now, Coop?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
There we go. All right, 4th down. What do the Vols need ASAP? What do they need in this class to really, really get someone's attention?
They need about 5 more offensive linemen. I mean, they need to be loading up on the offensive line. They're very short there, as we've talked about. They're a little thin there. They can't keep relying on the transfer portal. They need offensive linemen after offensive linemen. They need at least 4 fringe 5-star offensive linemen soon.
Rocky Top Tom says 2 massive offensive tackles. Agree.
Oh, yeah, I'm with Rocky Top Tom. He's right. That's what they need. They need to really work on the trenches right now. I think they're going to be okay on the defensive line. They have some depth there, and Rodney Garner, you can always trust to scout talent. They need offensive line talent immediately. And I mean immediately. There's real concerns about their depth at offensive line beyond this year.
Agreed. And those guys, not only do they need that, I'm going to throw a qualifier. They need the midterm cats, which is not as unusual as it used to be. So I think that Tennessee needs the midterm guys that can try to get somewhat ready. You're not going to be ready as a freshman most of the time to play in the SEC. But a note on our message board that Marcus Easley was leaning towards Tennessee. He is scheduled to announce on July 8th, I believe. That's the type of guy you need. 6'5", maybe 6'6". He's out at Illinois, but he's 335 pounds. There seems to be this notion that you can develop offensive linemen. You can, but you can't develop 6'5", 6'6", 335 pounds. So, Cooper Mays is a great example. He comes in, he's a little undersized, and he turns into a just great football player. But you're running a risk if you continue to do that. Travis had a question. Yes, go ahead.
I'm actually on your side with that. And I want to know what you've covered recruiting. And Jeremy Pruitt was big on this, funny enough, to his credit. I feel like when I look at offensive linemen, I actually look at their size more than their star rating. I think their size actually matters more. And Wisconsin and Iowa churn out more offensive linemen in the NFL than anybody, and none of them are 4 or 5 stars. I feel like the star rating is probably most inaccurate of offensive linemen of any position in recruiting.
No, and I think it's the toughest to evaluate. I also think that the star rating will depend largely on their feet and their footwork. But if you get a guy that's 6'5", 335 pounds, and he has any ambition to be a great football player, you can slide him in the guard. So, yes. I mean, you've got an automatic fallback. He may be listed as a tackle. He may want to play tackle, but you could slide him in the guard, and that's no big deal whatsoever.
So what you're saying is people who don't have the agility and footwork to play offensive line, if you can just plug size in at guard, is what you're saying, and it works.
Yes, you can't plod around and play tackle. I mean, that would be Albert Toina, no offense, but if you're going to get beat on the outside in today's day and age of college football with the edge rushers that don't have to put their hands down anymore or hand down anymore, and you're going to get caught in a bind pretty quickly if you don't have good feet. But if you don't have good feet, move him to guard, and you're all good. And as long as you want to play and you have some natural strength and physical ability, you can probably be just fine with that. I'm going to reset today's tough question because we're going to talk a little bit of Nick Saban and today's tough.
Well, you wanted to get to Travis. You said Travis had a question. You wanted to get.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Travis did have a question. Travis was, I think, surprised that you said Beasley was overrated. Why do you think Beasley is overrated?
Because I have, and I've said this for a while, I have more faith in East Tennessee prospects than Middle Tennessee prospects. And that's why I compared Boo Carter versus Caleb Beasley. Boo Carter, I mean, this is just one, I look at who was recruiting both of them. They were both highly recruited, but Boo Carter coming from East Tennessee. I think East Tennessee prospects, Dave, while I've criticized Middle Tennessee prospects, I think East Tennessee prospects are proving to be vastly underrated as players. I mean, Cooper Mays maybe should have been a fringe 5-star recruit. Instead, he was a fringe 4-star recruit. Jacob Warren should have been a more firmly supplanted 4-star recruit. I mean, Knoxville Catholic is just churning out some talent right now, and Chattanooga has a pretty good history too. And so that's the biggest reason is coming from East. I think Boo Carter's level of competition in East Tennessee is better than Beasley's level of competition in Middle Tennessee, quite honestly.
I'll tell you what we'll do, Travis. We'll get somebody to take a look at Beasley, and we'll get some thoughts over whether or not, as an actual player, he is overrated. I will give Caleb this for sure. It seems like the Middle Tennessee guys have not had the impact, and he and I have talked about that. I think that's going to change eventually, but I don't know when it's going to change. At some point,
it was supposed to change when Butch Jones was head coach.
Nah,
and he loaded up on the Middle Tennessee.
I think part of the thing you've got is the Southern California thing going on. I think football, because in Nashville it's such a transient, people come in and out and they move into there. Well, I can't remember the word I'm using, but they move into Nashville. And if you move into Nashville from a lot of different places, football's not the end all be all. You may be good at it, but you may not love it. Same thing in Southern California. There are a lot of guys that could, if they loved it, would be fantastic football players there. But you don't see that nearly as much in certain places. Texas, even though Tennessee hasn't done well in Texas, is typically the opposite, right? They're born and raised on, now they get overrated because there's so many of them, but they're born and raised on football and they love football. So you don't have that problem. But I do think that you're having some of that problem in Nashville. I think guys move in from Colorado, California. I was at the gym the other day and a lady told me, he said, I moved from Colorado. And I said, man, I've always wanted to live there. Why? And she goes, well, you smell weed on every corner. It's like, I had to get my kids away from that. I'm like, okay, well, that's a different discussion. But they were probably not raised on football. I think you want people from the South, not just because they're the best players, but because it means so much to them. So that is a very
and they play year round in the South. I mean, they're not done playing when the season's over in high school football.
No. And while we could debate this, they usually specialize in one sport. I don't believe specializing in one sport is the greatest thing. I think that you learn competition from different ones, but you're probably, as long as you don't get burned out, a better football player if you're specializing in 7-on-7s, passing leagues in the summer, and it's year round. I mean, you're at the gym at 5 a.m. in the summer. I don't think people realize what a lot of these high school kids go through, and the coaches are dedicated to be there. I mean, I've got several high school coaches, friends that are high school coaches that, I mean, they're there at 5 o'clock in the morning to open up the gym so guys can get their lifts in. Yeah. I mean, I think the last time I looked, Tennessee pays about $5,500 as a stipend for being an assistant coach. I mean, $5,500 a year as a bonus to my salary. You better not ask me to get up at 5 a.m. unless I love it. Now, if I love it, I'm gonna show up.